Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going back to the roaring 20s in New York City. We're going to be entrepreneurs, trying to join the ranks of the rich and famous. We're going to do so by developing our bootlegging and club operations. We're going to be getting involved with celebrities, and we're going to be trying to gain favor from the police and mob families. Today we're taking a look at Speakeasy Blues. This is sort of a dice drafting and placement game by Artana Games, and it's on Kickstarter right now. Let me give you an overview, and I'll see you on the other side. Now this is a Kickstarter preview, so all the artwork and components you're looking at is definitely prototype material. You'll want to check the Kickstarter page to see what all the final results are. Now at the beginning of the game, every player is going to get a Speakeasy board and 2 Speakeasy cards. They will select from these 2 which Speakeasy they want to be, depending on which resources they'd like to start with and how much reputation, which essentially is points. So let's say we selected this one, we would essentially get 3 money and 3 reputation to start the game. Reputation is one way to gain points at the end of the game, and they'll be going up and down throughout the game. Now the game itself is 10 rounds long. Each round players will be taking turns. They will be drafting dice from the board, rolling them, and using some from a pool to activate different actions. Each round you'll go through 3 different phases. You'll be doing possibly events, actions, and then the end of the round. The events happen here. Not all the cards that come out here are events. In fact, the first card of the game will always have this logo. That's essentially a contract where at the end of the game, if you're able to have the most of this logo, in this case it's baseballs, you'll get 4 points at the end. So no event happens here, but you can see what events are going to be coming up in the next couple of rounds. So you can see a little bit forward there, and there's 10 total events that will happen for the 10 different rounds of the game. Now during the actions phase, each player will take any 2 dice that has the same color off of the board, roll them, and add them to the dice pool. So let's say we just rolled yellow, took them off the board, rolled them into the dice pool. Now you can select any 2 dice of the same color, put them in the action spots on the board, and do those actions. Also, you can always pay $1 to re-roll all of the dice in the dice pool before you take your actions. But let's say we're going to take the 2 yellow dice. You're always taking 2 of the same color and you'll place them on there. Now when you place it, you can pick any open spot that's there that has that icon. This one will give you 1 hooch, which essentially is a form of currency in the game. If you went here, you get 2 hooch, but you must go down on your reputation track. So in this case, let's just get 1 hooch. So on my Speakeasy board down here, I would have given my hooch. Again, these are actually going to be bottles, it looks like, in the final version, but again, check the Kickstarter page. If I had taken 2 hooch and gotten negative reputation, I would have moved this down 1 because of that symbol, but in this case I took 1 hooch and that was that. Let's say we place the second yellow one and we go to society here. Now when you place this die, you can take any one of these 4 face-up society cards or the one that's face down. You can also spend $1 anytime in your turn to take all 4 of these, put them at the bottom of this pile, and put 4 new ones out. Now these cards will do different things depending on the card. Some of them are immediate, like this one would get you $3 right away. This one will allow you to spend $1 to get 3 reputation on your Speakeasy. Some of them are actions that you can use later, and some of them are end game rewards and points. Now when adding cards to your Speakeasy, you can add them to an empty spot. The first 2 are free, and once you start placing cards, and I would have only gotten 1, but I'm showing you over the course of time what might happen. If you wanted to add a spot here, you'd have to spend 1 just to get the first person there. Then after that, it's free to place them in that spot. This one would cost you $2. However, as you're building, you can continue to get new cards and place them down like this. However, when you do, you still have the icons, which might be worth points at the end of the game, doing set collection, but the ability of what's there is only available on the card that's on the top. Now how some of these action cards work, this would obviously be on your Speakeasy board, but just to show you, when you place a die here, like this, instead of taking just the action, which would have been 1 hooch, you can pay a hooch to get the ability for that card. So in this case, I would go here, I would pay 1, but I would get 3, so I'd end up with 2, which is great, because normally I'd have to go here to get 2, but I'd have to go down on my reputation. So since I had finished my turn, I would then refill this for the next player. Then I would go to the next player and you'd continue doing this. So let me show you some of the other actions you can take. Now when you gain favor, you take the token of that spot. So if I went here, I would take the cop token. There'd be a large stacks of each of these here. If you go to here or here, you have to lose a reputation, but you'd also immediately get the money depending on that round's event card. So if I went here, I'd get $2. If I went here, I'd get 3. Here, I'd get 3. But look at this. Later on, once this event comes in 2 rounds later, the middle one will actually be worth the most. So that dollar amount will change depending on the round. Now let's say I want to go here to the jazz space. I was placing the red die, I would place it there, and I would move down 1 reputation. But you could take one of 2 different types of jazz tokens. They look like that on one side, and they look like this or this on the other side. Now let's say I didn't place this. Let's say I had already gotten these on previous turns. When I'm placing the red die, I can either, if I had this token, I could use it to change it to anything I want. Maybe I want to come over here and do crime. And or if I have this, I can do that action twice. So you can use them in conjunction on the same die. But if you're doing something twice, you still have to pay any hooch costs or reputation twice because you get to do the action twice, and they can be used on the same die or individually as you wish. Now if you go to the collection, of course if you went to this spot, you'd gain $1, but you'd go down in reputation. This is just a normal collection. You would get to select any one of these face up or one of the ones face down on the top of the deck. And just like the society, you could always spend $1 during your turn to take these 4, put them at the bottom of the pile, and put 4 new ones out. Now when you get these collections, you're going to have to pay a cost in money depending on the number of this card. This one's 4 or this one is 1. Now you'd pay that to the supply, and then you would get the card and add it to your Speakeasy board. Now just like when placing the society cards in your Speakeasy, again, you can place it here or pay money to go there or there. You can also cover up. They can go in the same spots, covering up some other cards, but again, it's covering up other abilities. But you can decide where to place them. I'll talk more about why you'd place them in certain spots when I cover final scoring. If you go to a crime spot, you get to take the top 3 cards, pick one of them to keep, put the other 2 on the bottom. And you can place that in your Speakeasy with the same placement rules as before, as this one would have costed me $1 because it's the first one here. Keep in mind there's some icons on the bottom here we're going to talk about in just a moment, but these always go face down to start with. You'll be able to flip them up later in the game. The last spot I haven't talked about is the soiree in the middle of the board. You can place any dice side there. Then you look at the top card on every stack in your Speakeasy board and you'd get certain things or sometimes lose certain things. Here I'm going to get 2 reputation, so we'll put that up. And then here I'm going to get $1, so I would get the token for that. Keep in mind, I talked about the crime. Later on we'll talk about how to turn these over, but these would make you lose reputation if he has already done the crime. Now once everyone's in clockwise order taking the actions, you would reset and get set up for the next round by putting out the new events. Again, if this is a contest, this just goes to the side of the board where everyone can see it because these are end game goals. The rest of these would slide down and then a new event would come out. And again, now this event, a specific thing would happen. For example, you can spend 1 hooch to gain $2 on your turn this round. Now these crime cards are gangsters, and on a future turn, you can flip it over to activate it. In this case, this player would allow me to take a jazz token from another player. Plus it also has faction icons, which you remember when you go to get favors for majorities for the end of the game, bonus points and things like that, this will count towards that. However, if somebody else has a cop card that is face down on their Speakeasy, when someone flips over a gangster card, they can flip it over to negate what that card was supposed to do. Now the cop cards always give you these recurring abilities. This one, for example, allows you to swap the spots of 2 different cards in your Speakeasy, and this allows you to, at the end of your turn, you would flip all the dice in the dice pool to the crime marker, for example. Now after the 10 rounds is over, you'd go to final scoring. First you'd look at favors. For each of the 3 different favor types, you'd look at how many tokens you have and how many times you see that on any of the cards from the gangsters in your Speakeasy. And first place you get 10 points, second place 6 points, third place 2 points. You do that for each of those favors. In a 2-player game it goes 6 points for the first place, 2 points for last place. Next, you'd look at all the contests that came out that were out by the side of the board that had that logo, and you'd see who has the most of these. For example, let's say I had the most baseballs, I would then also get 4 points. If you're tied, you'd split it and round down. Next, you'd get points for wherever your reputation is throughout the game. And then you'd score the collection cards. Now, I talked about how these sort of work a little bit before, but if you have a symbol that is in more than one place, but that symbol is also on the top of any one of the spots in your Speakeasy, you'll then add up the points for all of those symbols. In this case, because this is on the top, I would get 6 points for that. However, if it was like this, I wouldn't get any points for these numbers here because you don't have one of these on the top of any of the spots in your Speakeasy. But you always get 1 point for each collection card regardless. And some cards on the top will give you endgame points, like this says, for every cop you have, you get 2 points. You'll also get 1 point for every 2 bottles of hooch and every $3. Whoever has the most is the winner. If there's a tie, the one with the most money wins. Well, there is Speakeasy Blues, and as you can see, streamlined mechanisms. You're choosing 2 of the same colored dice, and then depending on what you choose from that pool, you're gonna do different things out on the board with those. And I like the aspect of you've got to pick the same color, but you've got different dice values on those, and which places on the board are you going to use to place those to. So streamlined mechanisms, but a lot of good decisions to make, and I love the theme of this game. Now, if you want to learn more and see all the final artwork and components and different pledge levels, I encourage you to visit their Kickstarter page. There's a link below me in the description of this video. If you click that link, you'll be brought right to the Kickstarter page, and I'm sure the people at Artana Games would love your support.